Some breaking news now, and in the last couple of minutes, the High Court has granted an injunction for Epping Forest District Council to temporarily block asylum seekers from being housed at the Bell Hotel in Essex. Let's bring in our correspondent Ashna Hurunag, who is following this story forwards. So, Ashna, what has the court heard, and where does this go from here?
I think this is a significant moment and, quite frankly, a landmark decision by the High Court here, as Epping District Council essentially got what they wanted. They sought an interim injunction to stop the Bell Hotel in Epping from housing asylum seekers, which they have been doing for years, and that has been granted by a judge here at Court 13. The council had argued that it was not being used for its intended purpose, that the hotel itself was being used more like a hostel housing asylum seekers rather than for its intended use, breaking planning law permission. Lawyers for the council had argued on Friday at a hearing, also here at the High Court, that had been creating feeding ground for unrest, causing great anxiety in the community in Epping. Viewers may well remember it has been the last few weeks the centre, a beacon almost, of unrest, the hotel in Epping, as anti-immigration protesters have sought to seek out that hotel and start to make their voices heard. And clearly they have been listened to in this way. It is their voices that have led the council here to the High Court, in which the judge has now granted this temporary injunction. What this means is that essentially the asylum seekers who are being housed at that hotel will have to vacate it in some 24 days, and the hotel owners will have that amount of time to do so. The hotel owners, during this hearing, had tried to argue that this contract they had with the Home Office was a financial lifeline for them, that actually there hadn't been that much toing and froing on the hotel being used for this purpose between them and the council for some time. It was only since this unrest that this was brought to their attention and this case was pursued. What we have also heard today, at the 11th hour, when this hearing got underway at 2 p.m, a last-minute 11th hour intervention attempted by the Home Office. An extraordinary moment where we heard from their representatives. They tried to argue through their prosecution, their barrister apologies, that they said if this interim injunction was granted, this would pose a significant operational burden on the Secretary of State. They tried to argue, the Home Office, that there could be similar applications being made elsewhere which would aggravate the asylum system itself. The prosecution for the council, the council that brought this case, was quite punchy in their pushback. They said this was a thoroughly unprincipled application in a thoroughly unprincipled way. The Home Office knew about this injunction but sat on their hands. And today, a judge has now granted that temporary interim injunction. As I say, it now means the Bell Hotel will no longer be able to house asylum seekers. But we have heard that the defence for the hotel will indeed appeal.